My government service began in 1781 when I was only 14 years old. I became secretary to Mr. Francis Dana, who had just been named the minister to Russia for the United States. Just 13 years later, I became minister to the Netherlands. My father was then vice president of the United States. I had obtained a law degree from Harvard, and my future looked bright. The following year, 1795, President Washington sent me to London to follow up on negotiations pertaining to a recent treaty. While there, I began to spend many hours visiting the home of a well-known merchant, Joshua Johnson, our American consul in London. Oh, his home was the center of social activity, perhaps because he had 7 daughters. The Johnsons thought I was interested in the eldest, Nancy, but my attentions were actually centered on the second eldest, Louisa Catherine.
Although I had been born in London and schooled in France, my family was still very American, originally coming from southern Maryland. My uncle, Thomas Johnson, was actually Maryland's first governor. In fact, he had written my father a letter, begging him to make sure that his daughters marry American. So John Quincy and I became engaged, although most of our courtship was carried out through the mail.
I had my diplomatic duties. Oh, but Louisa's father seemed so eager for us to marry, even arranging meetings for us. And we soon found out that he had an ulterior motive for his hastiness.
Don't paint yourself to be so innocent, Mr. Adams. You too had an ulterior motive. You fully expected to have a financial dowry to set you up financially.
Yes, and why shouldn't I? I mean, here I would be removing the burden of a daughter and assuming it for the rest of my life. I should have been compensated. But I never was. Before the dowry could be paid, Louisa's father declared bankruptcy and returned to the United States. Then I knew why he was so eager for us to marry. But I wasn't eager, was I? As a matter of fact, I gave you an opportunity to reject this marriage.
Oh, yes. I remember that particular love letter you sent me, written entirely in the third person. You know the hardship and the chance for inconvenience and danger which you may be called upon to share with him. You know his inviolable attachment to his country. You know that upon retirement, the state of his fortune will require privations. Choose Louisa. Choose for yourself, and be assured that his heart will ratify your choice. You did give me a chance, and you remember my reply?
I know you didn't say no.
I wrote to you. Why, my beloved friend, do you ask me to choose, when what I have always declared required not a moment's hesitation on my part to determine? Your return would make me happy, and I only fear, dear friend, that you may find me a troublesome companion. I did love you, John, in the manner in which I knew love.
Thou hast ravished my heart, my spouse. Thou hast ravished my heart with one of thine eyes and one shade of thy neck. How fair is the love of my spouse! How much sweeter is thy love than wine, and the smell of thine ointments than all spices. Thy lips, O my spouse, drop as the honeycomb.
Honey and milk are under thy tongue.
The Song of Solomon. Oh yes, well, we did have some happy days soaking in the springtime sun and reading verses from Solomon's Song. On July 26, 1797, we were married in London, England. I was 30 years old and Louisa was 22.